Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is focused on declaration of Tamil Terrorism Education Week. Then this is the, today I am a moderator for this event. Thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Today, I am the moderator for the event, and so we have a distinguished panelist, Dr. Pratibha Mahanama, the expert on international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and Dr. Vasantha Bandara from National Organization of Foundation of National Organization. Then we have another panelist from Nuwan Balantudava. He is an attorney at law. These three panelists will provide counter false narrative of the Tamil LTTE terrorist propaganda. Today is a beautiful day in Canada. I am moderating from Canada, Ontario. Today's outside temperature is 20 degrees. It's a beautiful sunny day. And today also very special day. And today is a Mother's Day. And happy Mother's Day to everyone. Before begin, I like to present very little presentation. Then I have only few slides for you. And purpose of this LTT propaganda, the narrative, our research findings clearly say that there is three main objectives. First objective is whitewashing LTT atrocities and promote their separatist propaganda agenda and influence Canadian asylum policy and benefiting them for the human smuggling and criminal gangs and for the network. Then we know that there is a Tamil Genocide Education Week Act is in Ontario, but that act has been challenged at the appeal court for Ontario, and all submission now has been completed. According to the legal experts are in opinion, Tamil Genocide Education Week Act is unconstitutional and it will strike down at the Court of Appeal Ontario. However, this matter is before the court, so therefore I am not going to discuss anything any further. So then today I officially declared each year, 3rd week of May as a Tamil LTTE, Tamil Terrorism Education Week. Now I will open the floor to Dr. Pratibha Mahanama, and he will explain about how LTT involved with the violated international human rights law and international humanitarian law. May I invite Dr. Pratibha Mahanama to the webinar.
Thank you very much, Neville. You hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Now let's start this bill, genocide. Now, if you see the history, I have seen in 2016, 2017, 2018 continuously, the former Chief Minister of Northern Province, Honorable Vigneshwaran, former Supreme Court judge in Sri Lanka, he tried to come up with a resolution where Sri Lanka forces had committed genocide. But it was repeatedly rejected. So they failed in United Nations Human Rights Council. They tried to put that the genocide through UNHRC resolution, it failed. Now what they have done thereafter, they have started another propaganda, transnational LTT government. Still it is there. Even we have defeated LTT military operations, but they have their own LTTE transnational government operating from Netherlands and Denmark. So they want to promote this, where finally to take the International Criminal Court, but we have not signed the Rome Convention. But what I want to tell you, one and only, there are no evidence. There were no evidence even to prove this. Now, the biggest problem where we see the counterterrorism also, for me, he is a terrorist, but for the West, he can be liberal fighter. So United Nations 2004 Security Council, they passed a resolution also giving the definition of terrorist. So LTTE belongs to that group, and LTTE blacklisted in many countries, even in India. But it is nicely operating in fund collection, it's there in United Kingdom. So with that background, I will tell you, genocide, according to international humanitarian law and international human rights law. So this is the allegation they are making. You can remember at the last stages of the war, they kept LTTE forcibly, voluntary and involuntary, they forcibly kept 285,000 innocent Tamil people, and they were located in one area. They kept as a human shield. So Sri Lanka forces and Sri Lanka Air Force tried to take them, and they put these leaflets. Finally, they came, breaking that wall. And who fired first? It is very, very clearly show LTTE military cadres just firing those who are fleeing from that. So it's a violation. If you take international humanitarian law, additional protocol 1, article 51, subarticle 7 of the 1977, additional protocol 1 provides the presence of movements of civilian population or individual civilians shall not be used to render certain points or areas immune from military operations. In particular, it attempts to shield military objectives from the attack of the shield. So they kept humans as a shield. So it is number 1, violating international humanitarian law, Geneva Convention, 2 and 3, basically 51-7. And also there is another one, New Delhi draft rules are there, where Sri Lanka is an Asian country. Article 13 of 1956 New Delhi draft rules provides basically parties to the conflict are prohibited from placing or keeping members of civilian population subject to their authority in or near military objectives and keeping them as a basically human shield. Third one violation, UNTAET regulation number 2000/15, which established panels with exclusive jurisdiction over serious criminal offenses, including war crimes. So according to section 6(1)(b), 23, utilizing the presence of civilian or other protected persons, very clear, women, children, and elderly population, they kept in these certain points where when army, they want to liberate them. So there was no actually a war last stages. It's a pure humanitarian operations were conducted. But they give the interpretation in a different way. Because in United Nations Human Rights Council, still I can remember Channel 4. That is where the fake video they came up. All these fake evidence. Finally, Sri Lanka panel proved, former Attorney General Honorable Iva Vanasundara and expert from Moroto University, Dr. Chatura, we all were there. And they tried to prove, and finally it was actually refused and rejected. No one is talking about that. So that's why the LTTE, basically transnational government, they want to push this. Now it is in Ontario, it can spread to other areas. I think central government has totally rejected this. And also the same way they tried in Sydney and also New South Wales, the same way they try to organize Sri Lanka forces had done this type of genocide, but that was rejected. At the moment, we have to counter this with the appeal, as Mr. Neville said. And the other one, violation of human rights, freedom from movement. It is there 1966. Civil and Political Rights Convention. So LTT, they keep them as Mahaviru or certain other places and restricted the freedom of movement. That is where the violation. And the other one is child soldiers. UNICEF clearly say there were 5,200 child soldiers. Some are less than 14 years. They can't carry an arm or even AK-47. So nearly 3,000 were boys and others were girls. So they use that. It's a violation, UNICEF. So how come a country celebrate and say Sri Lanka forces had done genocide? So this is where very nicely they have passed this in Ontario Parliament and giving all misleading information. Former LTT Carter is there and is one of the MP. So he pushed and came up with that. So now what we have to tell the truth. So you can see basically lesson learned, LLRC report, you can really read and see how these fake evidence were reported. But we are not promoting that. And the other one, Parnagama Commission report, which clearly say Sri Lanka military has done. So taking all these things into account, nowadays, even within the LTT diaspora supporters, they have divided. Basically, it is coming in Canada. Now they try to promote this. So what they teach, these are ruthless terrorists. If they are liberal fighters, that's all right. So it's happened in certain countries there. But here, are they disciplined? Were they disciplined? They killed innocent people, bombing, bomb shelled. How many temples? Aran Talav, which is very clearly these innocent monks were shot down. And also how many bombs they planted in CTP buses. And the various, very important thing is we are landmines. They have set up in the area. So taking all these things, LTT must teach that also. If you say Sri Lanka forces had done genocide, all right, that is where ICRC, they have all the information, they have all the statistics and data. So this is a biased one. If they want to teach both sides. And then people will understand who is correct and who is wrong. But they are all biased. And also these LTT had, they have shooted certain video films. In those video films, fake films, they used and they show how even in United Nations Human Rights Council complex, I also participated one, and we had a, thereafter debate. In that debate, we repeated that. So likewise, the biggest issue is where United Nations Human Rights Council, I have seen, even I participated, not the inner one, outer one. We get a speech after 20 or 25, speak there. And also we get 90 seconds. With that, we have tell all. So the same like Goebbels theory, all these LTT supporters, and they come and say the same voice, but these patriotic, there are patriotic Sri Lankans. I'm telling Sinhala, Muslim, Tamil are there. So these patriotic people will get a very rare chance. So now they try to legalize this. Already they have done part of it, but we have a great obligation as citizens of this country to repeat. I don't want to tell one by one how they develop bomb and then how Fort Railway Station, all these things are there. Now what we are trying to do, we try to rebut it. So transnational government, we have to remember they make this voice. So they use the countries, they use their MPs. Finally, I want to tell one thing. All these LTT cadres very active now, supporting in Canadian elections, USA elections. That is the promise they give. So they full-time support all these LTT cadres to win the Labour Party, Democratic. I'm not criticizing. They can support anyone, but with one thing, they must give their demand. So one of the demand is this. So how they spend money, how they start their campaign. So everything now we can. At the moment, UNHRC little bit flexible situation for Sri Lanka because we are hearing certain other things. So this is the shortest one I can give, and thereafter we can have a good discussion later. Thank you, Dr. Neville, giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahanama. May I invite our next panelist, Dr. Vasantha Bandara from Federation of National Organization, and his presentation will be wide and focused on the OSI report and other information, and to counting LTT false propaganda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Evage, for organizing this, and also Dr. Mahanama for participating in the session. I would like to touch mainly three areas in my presentation. First is the validity of the claim of Tamil genocide in Sri Lanka. Secondly, the real aim or the hidden agenda behind this Act 104. And finally, the responsibility of the Canadian government and Sri Lankan government, as well as the Sri Lankans living in Sri Lanka and overseas, our responsibility towards this. So, first of all, the claim of Tamil genocide is false, and it is unfounded and fabricated. You know, there's no any credible or recognized organization, competent authority in the world has recognized such a genocide. There's no report. You see, there are some of the diaspora organization websites and news sites talk about this Tamil genocide, but there are very credible organizations and research organizations, International Journal of Genocide Studies and Prevention. They do not mention anything about Tamil genocide throughout. They are talking about the genocide in East Timor, genocide in Bosnia, Rwanda, and all that, but no word about the Tamil genocide. And International Association of Genocide Scholars, right? They never mention about this Tamil genocide. And the Journal of Genocide Research, International Journal of Genocide Studies and Prevention, right? And the UN Office on Genocide Prevention and Responsibility to Protect, right? None of these organizations have put forward any report to prove that genocide took place in Sri Lanka. They even don't mention the word genocide. Even the High Commissioner Said Al Hussein in 2014, in his speech, he never mentioned about genocide. He put forward all the other allegations in the OISL report. That is the ultimate document that is used by this Tamil diaspora to throw allegations against Sri Lankan forces. Even in that report, there are 11 allegations, 3 against LTT and 8 against Sri Lankan forces. And nothing about the genocide mentioned there. Some of the allegations, charges are under the international humanitarian law. There are 4, and the other 4 international humanitarian law. But there's nothing about genocide. And also, Sri Lankan office in the UN, they had the head count at the last phase of the war. From I can remember from February to May, and they counted 7,700 odd deaths. But they never talk about the situation of genocide. So there is no evidence, there's no any credible report, or even the UN has produced a lot of reports on East Timor and Bosnia and all, Rwanda, and nothing about Sri Lanka. So this is totally fabricated, unfounded, false. So so we have to challenge them, right? Even it is a shame. I cannot understand how Attorney General of the Federal Government of Canada, it must be ashamed. In this preamble, it says, it gives a figure which is not evidence-based. You see, if this so-called panel of expert report, it is mentioned like this. There could have been as many as 40,000 civilian deaths. Their all figures are estimated. You know, once they said 330,000 civilians were taken as refugees, right? But that was the total population of the one area at that time. But the real figure was 290,000. So during the last phase of the battle, 5,000 soldiers affected. So they sacrificed their lives and limbs. So roughly, LCT casualties must be definitely more than that. So the 7,000 figure is acceptable, and that was done by a head counting process by the UN itself. And they never mentioned about genocide. Even the Lawrence Smith from American Embassy, defense attaché, he never mentioned about genocide in any of his reports. And the Lord Naseby, who quoted the defense attaché's reports in the British High Commission, never mentioned about genocide. So this is a total fabrication. We can easily prove that to the Canadian people. Secondly, their aim, right? Aim of, or the hidden agenda, right? I think you have, Dr. Hevake, you have identified three. I think I would like to go for a fourth one as well. First is promotion of asylum seeking. Human trafficking is a lucrative business. I know some of the people in Canada who are known to us, how they make money out of this, right? Asylum seeking. It's a business, especially in the Ontario province, right? Where you get the largest population of asylum seekers in the world. You see, I can quote from we national organizations and the Goliath Sri Lankika Sansad there. We have prepared a rebuttal to answer all these allegations that was put forward by the OISL report. We have effectively countered even Sir Jeffrey Nice. We consulted him with these reports, and he gave the assurance that we have done the best rebuttal as far as this OISL report is concerned. And also, Global Sri Lankan Forum, Goliath Sri Lankan Sansad, especially Yasas Dharmadasa, he personally did, and he collected the data from TamilNet. And he very well proves that what TamilNet was publishing at the time of war and what they say now is totally different. So there is of course, it's a business need. They make money out of this. So I can quote from a judge in Canada in a asylum seeking case. There judge refers to Immigration and Refugee Board reports. There are research reports prepared, 2 reports prepared by the Immigration and Refugee Board Canada, where they never mention about the genocide, nothing. And also some of the scholars in Canada, they have prepared reports with regard to the asylum seeking issue, and there's nothing about asylum seeking. So this is a business. Second is justifying the terrorism. So to justify their terrorist tactics, they put forward this issue, genocide, right? To justify. You see, we know that Dr. Mahanam also mentioned, Peta bus stand bomb. All civilians were targeted. And sacred Felix temple of Dalada Maligar, Kandy, and sacred bow tree temple there in Anuradhapura, right? All those places, Srima Bodhi, they targeted civilians. Ruthless terrorist tactics they use. So they want to justify that. They want to watch what they have done so far by raising this issue of so-called genocide. Third, they want to enhance the validity of separatist claims. A lot of authors on this genocide, they have mentioned in their reports that this claim is used to justify weak separatist claims, enhance their demands, separatist demands, that give some validity to those demands. Even the East Timor judgment, they talk about it. And there are other international reports where they talk about self-determination is justified in case of if these people are subjected to genocide. So that is why they talk about genocide, to justify their separatist claims. The fourth, that is to create social disharmony, which is a precondition for their continuous struggle for separate state. They want to create disharmony among the Sri Lankan population, right? So they use this claim for that purpose, which is a precondition for their long-term struggle for separate state and long-term use of terrorist tactics in the future, and also to maintain their business, lucrative business of asylum seeking. So thirdly, the responsibility of the Canadian government. Canadian government miserably failed. In this case, they have failed to uphold the Article 3 of the Vienna Convention, right? It says right of diplomatic mission to protect in the receiving state the interests of the sending state and of its nationals within the limits permitted by the international law. So the Sri Lankan government, our embassy in Canada, they forwarded a report to the foreign services, foreign ministry there, and they have given all sort of counter arguments, but nothing was taken into consideration. And you see this, the situation about the children. Now, when this so-called education week, when this false propaganda is used to brainwash the students, right, mindset, what happened? Some of the students will have anger towards the other student, fellow student who is sitting next to him, right? And with this genocide tag, they are mentally, you know, they will be name calling, right? You are a member of a genocide nation. So how this is a psychological trauma, the kind of psychological trauma that would the children would face when this so-called education week is launched, right? That is targeted at these children. They know nothing about whether Tamil or Sinhalese. They are not party to this disastrous separatist struggle, right? Even these children are, they are friends, whether Tamil and Sinhalese, they are all friends. But this so-called genocide week, right, make a divide between them and traumatize them psychologically, right? And put the tag on them that you are a member of the genocide nation, which is so unfair. So I think the Attorney General of the federal government of Canada must be ashamed of himself, you know, having this kind of act in the preamble. They give such an arbitrary figure, right, and justify the claim, justify the purpose of the bill. So we have to expose all these things. And also, Dr. Hevage, we beg you, we have done a job that must be done by the government, right? We must thank Attorney at Law Darshan Veerasekara. He worked 10 to 15 hours a day for 3 months. We read thousands of papers, right, and prepared these 2 reports to counter the allegations of OISL report. So our former Chief Justice Sarath Silva, he admitted that this is one of the best rebuttal that he has seen in his judicial life. And also the same verdicts were used by Sir Jeffrey Nice when we consulted him regarding this. And we have put forward this document in the complaint procedure of the Human Rights Organization, Commission, Council, but this was not inquired into, but it's still an official document in that process. And our government failed to ask for the natural justice, request for the natural justice. Even in the tribal society, that justice is assured. If an allegation is made against a person or group of person or country or whatever, they should be given the chance to defend themselves, to count those allegations. We were never given that chance. And we as an organization, we countered them, but as a government, we never asked for it, and the government never used these things. So I beg the Canadian Sri Lankans, especially Dr. Hevage, at least now use this document to counter these so-called 104 over bill. Thank you. Not the Bill Act.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vasantha Bandara. But actually, our idea is that to counter very effectively and scientifically how LTT damage use the propaganda to damage the education system in Ontario. So therefore, what we are going to do, and we will segregate all the information into different aspects: social, educational, and political. And so these areas, and we will produce the separate material to understand public and very carefully, and that academic and other researchers also, they can have a much more detail about the final stage of the war and the complete situation about in Canada and Sri Lanka. So in that case, what will happen during the Tamil LTTE Tamil Terrorism Education Week, and we will educate the public very effective manner, and through the university research centers and other areas, and we will clearly identify them what are the areas we need to address and educate them during this program, during this week. So our next speaker, Nuwan Balantudua from Sri Lankan Global Forum. May I invite Nuwan Balantudua, attorney at law, to provide his insight about this false Tamil LTTE terrorist propaganda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Neville Hevage, on behalf of the Ontario Centre Policy Research Institute for organizing this very important discussion today to educate about the Tamil Genocide Week and the repercussions of this act passed by the Canada Parliament. I have the privilege of listening to two very inspiring and informative sessions by Dr. Vasantha Bandara and Dr. Pratibha Mahanama. Now, something that we need to understand, the fundamentals of this LTT claim for a separatist agenda is based on two things. One is their so-called homeland in the northern and eastern province of this country. And the other thing is the Tamils as a minority of this country have been discriminated by the majority of Sinhalese or Sri Lankan government throughout the period. So based on these two factors, they are building up their separatist campaign all over the world, and they are spreading this misinformation to gain the sympathy from the people to support, as Dr. Pratibha Mahana mentioned, to raise funds for their future campaigns to support the LTTE separatist ideology. Now, if you look into the details, if you look into the what happened during the last 4 centuries in Sri Lanka, what happened in the 4 centuries in Sri Lanka, we can clearly understand who actually deprived the innocent Tamils from their political rights and their education rights and other rights. Especially if you start, as Dr. Mahanama quoted, if you start from the last few days of the war, it is the LTT who captured and retained over nearly about 300,000 Tamils as a human shield just to protect their leaders. So they were not allowed to go out. They were here. That's a clear violation of the human rights. Not only the human rights, that's a clear violation of the humanitarian law, which any party engaged in a war should respect during the time of war. Now, as opposed to this, even in the most difficult times, Sri Lankan government has done their best to serve protect the Tamil people who were trapped in the war areas. I would like to quote from the rebuttal that Dr. Asanta Bandar quoted. We did as a Sri Lankan Global Forum together with the Sri Lanka Federation of National Organizations to rebut the false allegations made against the Sri Lankan army. There we have quoted the 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 district secretary of the Mulattivu district, Imelda Sukumar, who said at the Humanitarian Assistance Committee, which was chaired by then Defense Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that they have sufficient foods, sufficient buffer stocks of the foods for the requirement of the population in the Mulattivu area during the wartime. And not only these local authorities, even the other parties who participated for this humanitarian committee or the council meetings, they commended the Sri Lankan government and Sri Lankan army as a role model and appreciated the Sri Lankan government, Sri Lankan army's role in protecting the humanitarian rights of the Tamil people who were trapped in the O area. And now, Dr. Mahanam also mentioned about the child soldiers. We always say that the best thing is always for the the children. But what is the best thing that the LTT has given for the Tamil children? They took nearly about 5,000 children between age of 12 and 18 from their families. They were taken away and they were recruited as child soldiers, and they were given the cyanide capsule to their neck and as well the weapons to their hands instead of the books and other equipments required for the education. So no one is talking about the rights of these innocent Tamil children who were victims of the LTTE campaign. So it is not the Sri Lankan government, it is not the Sri Lankan army who deprived these innocent children from their right to education. Now, if you look at how we always hear that LTT was telling that they were the sole representative of the Tamil ethnic people in this country, Tamil minorities. How they became the sole voice of the Tamil people. They eradicated all the other Tamil groups, Tamil political groups in the country. For example, it is not the Sri Lankan government, was not the Sri Lankan army who killed the Tamil politicians, starting from well-known Alfred Durayappa, the former mayor of the Jaffna. The Prabhakaran himself shot him dead in 1970. And then one of the key proponent of the Tamil Elam concept, TULF leader Albert Amirthalingam, then Thagadurai, Thagadurai, TULF MP for the Trincomalee district, and Neelam Tiruchellam, another well-known scholar. He was the instrumental in producing the draft constitution prepared, which was supposed to be presented by Chandrika Bandaranaike and Ranil Wickramasinghe in 1990s. He was also killed by LTTE. And Nataraja Raviraj, he was a human rights activist in Jaffna, and later became a politician, represented the TULF. But they killed all these the politicians who were in the parliament, who represent the democratic stream of the country. Thereby, they became the sole representatives of the Tamil people. And if you look at the population statistics of the country, there is no logic that you can find in the so-called traditional homeland in north and eastern provinces. For example, if you look at the population figures in the northern province, there are about 987,000 Tamils, and in Eastern province, there are about 609,000 Tamils. Altogether, that will make about 1.5 million out of the 22 million total population of Sri Lanka, which represent only 7.2% of the total population. So the balance, the rest of the Tamils, nearly about another 7% of the 50% of the population lives outside so-called traditional homelands in harmony with the other races and with the Sinhalese people. So there is no logical basis for this the argument of Tamil homeland, or so-called Tamil homeland in north and eastern provinces. And if you look at the election figures, that shows us something else. If you look at the election results that was issued in the results of the local council election in 2018, I would compare. I'm not going to compare the whole election results, but I'm going to compare the election results of a couple of political parties who got the votes, which is in numbers similar to what the LTTE supportive TNA got at the election. Now, Ilankai Tamil Arasu Katchi, or the TNA, they got 339 votes, 39,000 votes, which constitute 3.7% of the total votes. And they have secured 41 local councils in north and eastern provinces. 41 local councils for 339, 675 votes. But whereas the JVP secured 693 and 875 votes, almost double than what the TNA secured at the local council election, and they got zero local councils. So compared to the party who got the double as ITAK got zero local councils, and whereas ITK got 41 local councils. And similarly, at the last general election that was held in 2020, Tamil National Alliance, or the ITAK, secured only 327,000 votes in the whole country, which constitutes only 2%, 2.82% of the total votes, valid votes. They have secured 10 seats in the parliament, whereas Jatika Jana Balavega, or the political group led by the JVP, they have secured 445,000 votes, which constitute 3.84. They have got only 3 seats compared to what the TNA has secured in election. Now, if you compare these political figures, it clearly shows that they are overrepresented in representative organized institutions in this country. So they cannot substantiate the claim that they are discriminated politically. And also, I would like to bring your attention to one of the very important factor, that is the representation that cover, as a cross-section of the professional representations in this country. Now, if you look at the attorney generals in this country from 1975, from 1975 to now, out of 43 years, 23 years, the attorney generals who have served in this country are Tamils. Mr. Siva Pasupati, he has served as attorney general from 1975 to 1988, and K. Kamal Sabeshan from 1999 to 2007. And then the present AG, Mr. Sanjay Rajaratnam from 2021 to present. So if there is such discrimination for the Tamils to represent to the government bodies, to the coming to the top of the government bodies. How come these attorney generals took that position as Tamils, which from the minority groups of this country? Now, there is something very interesting that these campaigners are always talking about. That is the Sinhalese Only Act. What is this Sinhalese Only Act? There is nothing called Sinhalese Only Act in our legislation history. We have an official, that is we have an official language act number 33 of 1956. Everyone knows that Sri Lanka was under the Western oppression for over 400 years, and at the time of the time that the Western colonized Sri Lanka, it was the Sinhalese kings who ruled this country. They are the one who handed over the Sri Lankan regime to the British and the other Western and the other European regimes. So with the independence, there was a claim from Sri Lankan communities, Sri Lankan Sinhalese communities who fought for the independence of this country, that Sinhalese should be given a proper place after the end of the colonial era. Accordingly, in 1956, that government enacted official language act. It is not the Sinhalese only act. It is an official language act which make the Sinhalese as an official language act, Sinhalese official as the official language of the country. And the special thing that they intentionally forget or intentionally disregard about the official language act is that act is operative from 1960s. It took about 5 years. The government took 5 years to plan to implement the official language into full operation or full implementation. And at the same time, in 1958, the government enacted Tamil Language Special Provision Act, which also made the Tamil as a language of the administration in the northern and eastern provinces. So then that ensures that Tamil minority members from the Tamil minority will have their right protected for the correspondence and the education in their own language. But something that these campaigners forgot about is the Prevention of Social Disability Act of number 21 of 1957. This act actually intended nothing but the discrimination that was sustained, that was maintained against the innocent low-caste Tamils in the northern province of this country by the high-caste Tamils in the Jaffna, especially in the Jaffna Peninsula. They were deprived from their religious right. They were prevented from attending to public places. They were stopped attending to public school by the high caste Tamil people. So government, the so-called government that brought the so-called official language act or the Sinhalese only act, brought this very important and valuable piece of legislation to ensure that the rights of the innocent Tamils or the low caste Tamils rights are protected. And something that we are not known, or this international at the international we are not talking about. It is actually not the Tamils who are deprived from the basic fundamental rights. It is the Sinhalese people who lived in those areas in the north and eastern provinces are deprived from their rights. As we know, there are about 4 high schools in Jaffna Peninsula itself, and there are about 16 schools in single medium schools in Mana district, but none of the schools are operating at the moment. So what happened to them? So what happened to the population who lived in the Jaffna Peninsula before the war starts? In 1970s, we heard there are so many Sri Lankan Sinhalese families were there. Sinhala Matara Batkada and Sinhalese people were trading there. But what happened to those people who were chased with just a one-day notice by the LTTE to the south? There was no such, no discussion about, no effort to resettle these people in these areas. I have individually involved with some of the grievances raised by the people, the Sinhalese people who were chased out, who were wiped out from these northern provinces. Their family members were killed to pieces by the LTT gangs during the wartime. But when they go back to their own villages where they were grown up, they have not been given the proper deeds. Their deeds has been destroyed. Some deeds I saw to my own eyes the deeds and the license were there, but the government officials who communicate in Tamils doesn't give any such copies of those documents to the people who were deprived from these, who were chased out from these areas. And if you look at the 16th Amendment of the to make to the Constitution, it is actually a Tamils only amendment. Now, as per the provisions of the Article 22(1) of the Constitution, it has been made that Tamil is as a that administrative language of the country, of the north and eastern provinces, whereas the in the other provinces, other seven provinces, Tamil and Sinhalese are both are the official the languages of the provinces. So in the two provinces, the Sinhalese have no right or no right to present their case to the courts. I personally experienced this when I represent few of the cases regarding the archaeological matters in the north, in the northern province. I was not given an opportunity. I couldn't present my case on behalf of my claimant because they have no official translators in place to record our presentations either in English or even in Sinhalese. So it is actually that the Sinhalese who lived in those areas are deprived or discriminated from their right for the language. And also, I would like to quote something very interesting. Again, we always say the best is always for the children. Now, if you look at the scholarship, grade 5 scholarships examination results, for the last 10 years, the cutoff marks has been issued for all the province, all the districts, all the 25 districts, and cutoff marks in Tamil medium issued for all the 25 districts. Unfortunately, for 4 administrative districts of this country has no cutoff points for single medium students. That is for Jaffna, Mana, Kilnochi, and Batiklo districts. There were no single student who has sat for the grade 5 scholarships exam in single medium. So, who has really been discriminated? That is the question that we have to answer. We have to educate that the world and the leaders of the other countries and the people of those countries who actually get away, who are misled by the miscampaigners supporting the LTTE and the Tamil diaspora, that the Tamils were discriminated in this country is a myth. It is not the Tamils who have been discriminated, but it is the Sinhalese people who have lived in those areas are discriminated. Those are the people who are deprived them from their rights, and not only from their language rights and cultural rights and their right to live there, but also from their religious rights and also economical rights. We know that certain politicians destroyed the fishermen areas, and the politicians nowadays, they on daily basis they attack and destroyed the archaeological sites in northern and eastern provinces of this country. It is not the Sinhalese people who said those archaeological sites are Sinhalese. Those are according to the archaeological reports produced by the British government that was produced in 1991 and 1938. It clearly shows the vast majority of the archaeological sites are found in those areas are in single Buddhist nature. So let it be decided by the experts of the archaeological department, not by the greedy and narrow-minded politicians who are dragging this matter for just for their political gain. So my submission is that the Tamils are not really discriminated in any terms in this country, they have been given equal opportunity. They are not discriminated or they are not deprived from their rights, not simply because of being Tamils in this country. They might also have the same issues experience encountered by the other citizens of this country. So the world should know the reality rather than the miscommunications, misinformation campaign by the Tamils. Thank you, Dr. Nele.
Thank you very much, Nuwan. So it is a very, very good presentation and give a very good insight about the counter LTTE Tamil terrorist propaganda. And in addition to that, I would like to submit, and recently State Department of the United Kingdom completed the research program at the in Sri Lanka, and that according to that research program, and they applied the totally um, uh, European Commission research standard. That research program clearly said there is no discrimination for Tamil because of being Tamil. Because they might have some terrorism activity and some other activities, but because of the Tamil, and there is no discrimination, they couldn't find any evidence. In addition to that, I would like to mention here an United Nations panel of the experts report and LTTE involved with the war crime under 6 core categories. One is using Tamil civilians as a human buffer. Second, killing Tamil civilians attempting to flee LTT control. And third, using military equipment in the proximity of the Tamil civilians. And fourth one, forced recruitment of the Tamil children. Fifth one, forced labor. And sixth, the category violation, killing of Tamil civilians through suicide attacks. So this is how LTTE, Tamil terrorists, act against their own Tamil. So now they are coming to show, and they are the best people in the world. And then in addition to that, their propaganda campaign is putting forward to distort the Ontario education system and distort the communal harmony around the students around the school. And some of the LTT supporters and sympathizers, they requested to address the school boards. But according to the Tamil Genocide Act, there is no curriculum. There is no, it is not comes under education, the education category under Constitution Act. It is just a propaganda campaign. But that propaganda campaign, and they want to use to brainwash the child and children in the school, and they invited, they call, and by force they are using their political power and voting power and money and whatever they have to educate our kids in Ontario in the wrong and false propaganda campaign material. Then, but actually now we are very close to our webinar. Before I closed, so may I invite all the panelists to join the webinar. Then we will put the few questions and then after that we can end this webinar. Dr. Mahanama is there. Yeah, yes, and Nuwan also here. Yeah, thank you very much. And so this question to Dr. Mahanama, but actually it is came from France, and he asked that can you explain under international humanitarian law and the human rights law, what are the main incidents LTTE conducted, reported during the final stage of the armed campaign?
Yeah. Now, I will come up with first one. Last stages of the war, 3 international instruments were violated. That is where Geneva Convention as I said earlier, Geneva Convention 2 and 3, as well as Additional Protocol 1. That is Article 51, Sub-Article 7 of the 1977 Additional Protocol, which say human shield. That is number one. So LTTE kept 285,000 innocent Tamil citizens. They were chasing from Kilinochchi, and finally they came up to Mullatiu area. You know, Dr. Neville, they were given only soup, soup, nothing given. And they were restricted and put a fence, they can't go out. Because when military come for humanitarian operation, then they put these most protected and vulnerable citizens to the field. That is number one. So international humanitarian law violated. Protocol 1, keeping innocent citizens as well as elderly, young, as well as women as a human shield. Number 2, second one, protected religious places. They have bombed. Why they have bombed this Muslim mosque? To make conflict between Sinhala and Muslims. That is where racial intention was there. So that is one, protected religious places. Third one, bombing hospitals, because when they are actually defeating that, they blasted. Thereafter, landmines. It's very serious. How many soldiers, they lost their legs. Even LTTE cadres also say. And then destroying the public property. I'm not telling government, public property. Can be a bus, or it can be a transportation. Likewise, I can give a series of incidents which falls into this. Then International Human Rights Law violation, 1966 Civil and Political Rights Convention. Certain articles, freedom of movement, freedom of speech. Even they cannot come out and give a statement to the press. Even their own Mahatya, their beauty leader, he was tortured and kept in a shell. This is where international human rights. And also remember the right to life, even which is not in our constitution, but right to life. They killed anyone. No one said that very clearly. Anyone going against their philosophy or their opinion. Uma Maheswaran, one of the former socialist as well as communist ideas he had, was assassinated. So likewise, Kaushalyan in Batiklo. I can give a list, it will take Dr. Neville long time. But I am going to pinpoint they violated right to life of innocent Tamils. And then they violated freedom, that is where freedom from torture, degrading punishment, and right to movement. Any place we can live in the world. So likewise, a lot of other things were there. And also fabricated evidence. Now the biggest problem, ICRC also, they have mentioned these are the incidents LTTE violated. The LTTE no more now. So therefore, how we are going to punish? Now all these are government obligation, not the government, state obligation. When you sign a convention, the state obligation is there. Otherwise, they will question in the UNHRC and other places, ICRC. So most probably what they have done, they are trying to escape from that and making the responsibility they put to basically to the state. I will give one example and finish. I met sometimes back in the war period, Mana Bishop, Rayapu Joseph, Honorable Rayapu Joseph. He showed me a list. He said 600 Tamil civilians are missing. Thereafter, we got that list. When they were double checking, most of them are in Canada, your country. They have taken political asylum, self-exaggeration. So likewise, all these data, it's not accurate. So what they show that they have been missing or killing, you don't know what happened to Kotuamma, there are reasons. But these people are living political asylum in France, in Canada. I can give all this list. So nearly all these are fabricated statistics. So these are the things we have to be a little bit concerned. And UNICEF also the other one, child rights violation. as 1990 Child Right Convention, we have signed and ratified. Most of the, you can't put children to armed conflict. That's a violation. But Sri Lanka Army, anyone recruit plus 18. But here, shortage of these soldiers, they recruited women and child soldiers. So these are some of the incidents. There are many more. I can tell you, I can give you. For the moment, I think with the time limitation, I can pinpoint. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahanama. It is a very, very summarized and very concise answer how LTTE, separatist and propaganda campaign, used to fabricate the false information throughout their campaign. And so there's another question to Dr. Vasantha Bandara. And now current situation in Sri Lanka, and we can see clearly there is a disparity among the urban and rural. It is affected to the both either Tamils or Sinhalese or Muslim, any community is living there. So in that case, can you elaborate how LTTE propagandists use this universal disparity to get their propaganda campaign, enhance their propaganda campaign? So you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, this disparity was used by the LTT for their advantage. It's obvious. Even now, this Sumandiran and all these, saviors of Tamil nation look into the grievances of these poor masses. As Nuwan mentioned that the Prevention of Social Disabilities Act is not enforced. More than 2/3 of the population is suppressed by these so-called Vellalas, Sumandiran and all other, these high caste people, right? And they are victims of their monetary slaves. They are victims so-called microfinance. Some have to pay about 50%, 60% interest. They commit suicide. At least 20 or 30 people commit suicide in North and East every year. But they are doing nothing about it. Even the provincial government, they did not use the funds allocated to them. This former chief minister who is talking about genocide never used those funds for these poor people who are economically deprived there, right? So these low-caste Tamil people are suffering there, and nobody is doing, these Tamil leaders are doing anything about that. They have no sympathy towards them. We have sympathy towards them. We are doing so many things. At least we talk about them, right? 2/3 of the people, community, they get only 33%, 35% votes for
I think Dr. Bandari is having some technical issue. So then, but actually now I move into Nuwan Balantudur.
show that
Yeah, Dr. Bandari is having some technical issue. Okay. Dr. Bandara, we will come back to you. Okay, Nuwan. So this is the question I need to focus you, but actually that question came from London, UK. So one of the participant, and he sent us that question. Specifically, he mentioned to you, addressed this issue. Then why LTTE propagandists and supporters, they used their campaign to show by the same time they also kill their own Tamil people, Tamil politician, Tamil intellectual, and so by killing them, and but that matters. Those information are why not in the public domain. What is the reason for their propaganda campaign, and how we can counter that kind of situation?
Thank you, Neville again, Dr. Neville again for the question. I think it is because I mean they are very powerful in these areas because as the Dr. Mahana mentioned, now the Tamil diaspora in these countries, Western countries, are well organized than the Sri Lankan Sinhalese communities. They work together with the politicians. They rally behind the politicians. They support to the politicians for their elections. So thereby they reach these politicians through the political campaigns. And also on the part of the Sri Lankan government, I mean the network of Sri Lankan representatives in the around the world are not doing their job well because we know that the most of the appointments are political appointments. So they have not been educated.
Explain that very nicely. How and the power they used. People deprive people in the
I think no one. So you can continue. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we expect from the government is to spread the truth about what we have done and what the reality. That's why, as Dr. Vasanta Bandar mentioned, we asked the Sri Lankan Global Forum together with the Federation of National Organization did this rebuttal, Viruange Vittivachakaya, that countered the false allegations and disclosed the reality. Even Sri Lankan government even didn't use that, utilize that document, a well-researched document to counter the LTTE campaign. And this is something hanging sword on our country about our sovereignty, and they are using these war crime allegations and the discrimination campaigns against our unitary state and against our country all the time. The government has a responsibility to use this all the information available in this country, because if you just search on the Google, you can find all this information, that how many politicians were killed by LTT, how they have deprived Tamil children from their education, how they became the sole representative of the Tamil people. And one thing that the provincial councils was a result of the ongoing disputes of the country, which was forcefully enforced on us by the Indian government. But there was no such election, no election for the provincial councils from 1989 until the Sri Lankan government really get the areas released from the LTT domination. So there was no such political rights that Tamils could talk about when it was under LTT control. So we have to spread. We have to we have to educate the members of the parliament, the other countries, and the organizations about these facts, because these information are actually publicly available. And one more thing, even though this information are publicly available, these countries are not because that they don't know this information, they really know this information, but they use this campaign to destabilize the country. That is one thing that they are doing, because they use the human rights as a tool to control the other countries. They use the discrimination as a tool to create hostilities between the communities in this country. So then they can actually plant their agenda in our soil to achieve their economic and defense strategies in the Indian Ocean. So we have to be mindful of their strategies as well when we address these issues. It is not because they don't know it. It is not because that this information are not available in public. It might be the general public might not know about these things, but the US Department of Information and the other countries also have the similar departments who investigate, who gather this information from about the other country profiles, They should have this information, but they intentionally hide this information because they have a different agenda. They want to misuse these LTT campaigners to achieve their own goals.
Thank you very much, Nuan. So it is a clear insight of this thing. So now I would like to end this webinar. And Dr. Vasanta Bandar, are you here? Yeah, but anyway, so I would like to end the webinar. Then finally, then I would. Dr. Bandar, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. We can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, but actually, your video is turned around, but still you can give a last minute closing. Then I will allow you to finish your closing because of we had a technical difficulties from your feed. Yeah, still we are having issues. Yeah, issues. Yeah. Okay, so then I would like to conclude today's webinar and end of this third week of May, and we declare that LTTE Tamil Terrorism Education Week. And during that week, and we will address the schools and academic institutions and research institutions, and we will carefully provide the research material to them, and so they can study and very well about the LTT propaganda campaign, how they LTT terrorists, they involve and try to infiltrate into the Canadian and Ontario education system. So this the whole idea is that to prevent that and stopping militarizing the childhood by the other LTT supporters. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. And then I thank you very much for our panelists, Dr. Pratibha Mahanama and Dr. Vasanta Bandara from National Organization, and Nuan Balantudu, attorney at law, and providing us a clear insight about the situation. Thank you very much for our listeners across the world. And you can have this video also available on the YouTube at the later date. And thank you very much for joining, and have a nice day. Thank you very much. Then I officially conclude, and this webinar is over. Thank you.
Thank you.